The last hope. The grand chamber of the Galactic Conclave fell silent as Supreme Administrator Vixtal activated the holographic display. The massive crystalline dome above them reflected the eerie purple glow of countless dying stars, each representing another civilization lost to the entropy cascade. 15 advanced civilizations. Vixtal's voice wavered, their bioluminescent patterns flickering with distress. 15 species with technology far beyond anything we thought possible, gone in less than a standard orbital cycle. The assembled representatives of the galaxy's surviving spacefaring races watched in horror as the display showed another sophisticated world being consumed. The entropy cascade moved like liquid darkness through space, converting ordered matter into chaos, leaving only quantum static in its wake. It didn't discriminate between organic and artificial. Everything in its path simply unraveled. Our most advanced quantum computers can't even process its patterns, declared Chief Scientist Xena 9, her crystalline form vibrating with frustration. It's as if it operates on principles that violate the fundamental laws of physics themselves. The cascade adapts to every defense we devise, added War Strategist Crix, his armored exoskeleton clicking nervously. The more sophisticated our response, the more quickly it learns to counter it. It's like fighting against entropy itself. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices as panic began to set in. Some called for mass evacuation to other galaxies. Others insisted on pouring more resources into increasingly complex technological solutions. A few simply sat in stunned silence, their species' mighty empires reduced to frightened refugees in mere months. But in the chaos, one voice cut through the noise. Junior Archivist Mira Lay, normally too junior to even speak in such august company, couldn't contain herself any longer. "What about the anomaly?" she asked, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy. "The one in Sector 847. The chamber fell silent again, but this time with confusion rather than dread. Supreme Administrator Vixtal turned all 4 eye stalks toward the young archivist. "Explain yourself, junior member." Miralay's bioluminescence flickered rapidly as she interfaced with the central database. A new hologram appeared, a small blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. "There's a developing civilization in Sector 847 that defies all our models," she explained. "They're barely at level 2 on the technological scale, and yet..." She displayed a series of observations that made the assembled representatives gasp. They've split the atom while still burning fossil fuels. They reached their moon using chemical rockets. They've created artificial intelligence while still using primitive silicon processors. They routinely survive conditions that our predictive models say should be fatal. And most importantly, she highlighted a crucial data point. They consistently achieve outcomes that our most advanced probability engines calculate as impossible. War Strategist Crix leaned forward. "You're talking about humans. They were flagged as too unstable for contact centuries ago. Their decision-making is completely irrational." "Exactly." Miralay's tentacles waved with excitement. "The entropy cascade destroys through perfect, predictable patterns. It defeats us because we fight with logic and reason. But humans don't make sense. They do things that violate game theory. They help strangers at cost to themselves. They pursue goals our models say are unattainable. They survive through methods that shouldn't work." Chief Scientist Xena 9's crystalline surface rippled with realization. "You're suggesting we need their illogical nature, their chaos." "The cascade adapts to patterns," Mira Lay continued. "But how can it adapt to a species that doesn't follow any? A species that looks at impossible odds and tries anyway. That turns apparent weaknesses into strengths." The chamber erupted in debate. Many argued it was too risky to involve such an unpredictable species. Others pointed out they had nothing left to lose. Supreme Administrator Vixtal raised all appendages for silence. "Young one," they addressed Miralay, "you realize what you're proposing. To contact a pre-FTL civilization, to give them advanced technology, to trust the fate of the galaxy to barbarians. Miralay's bioluminescence pulsed with conviction, with respect. Administrator, our civilization's greatest strength has always been our ability to predict, to calculate, to follow logical patterns. But against the cascade, those strengths have become weaknesses. Perhaps what we need now isn't another logical solution. Perhaps what we need is a species that looks at the impossible and says, why not? War strategist Crix pulled up more human historical data. They do have a remarkable track record of surviving against overwhelming odds, and their methods are unconventional. They're still fighting each other over resources and ideology. Another representative objected. They're divided, emotional, unpredictable. Good, Miralay said firmly, because right now, the galaxy doesn't need another logical, unified, predictable civilization for the cascade to consume. It needs something different, something that even we don't understand, something human. Supreme Administrator Vixtol studied the image of Earth for a long moment. In the background, another alert signaled another advanced world lost to the cascade. Finally, they spoke. Prepare first contact protocols. If we're going to trust our fate to barbarians, let's hope their chaos proves stronger than entropy's order. And may the cosmic forces help us all. As the conclave rushed to action, Miralay kept watching the human historical records. She saw them dancing in the rain, telling stories about impossible things, diving into mysteries just to see what they'd find. She saw them fighting against overwhelming odds, helping each other for no logical reason, and achieving things their own scientists said couldn't be done. Maybe, she thought, that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. Not another civilization that follows the rules, but one that breaks them in all the right ways. Chaos theory. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the impossible equation floating in the holographic display. Around her, the hastily converted warehouse buzzed with activity as humanity's brightest minds worked alongside alien scientists. 3 months after first contact, and she still couldn't quite believe she was using technology that made quantum computers look like pocket calculators. It doesn't make sense, she muttered, running her hands through her disheveled hair. The cascade's patterns are perfect. Too perfect. It's like it's not just destroying matter, it's enforcing order through destruction. Next to her, Chief Scientist Xena9's crystalline form shimmed with frustration. Precisely. It turns chaos into perfect entropy. Every solution we devise is eventually predicted and countered. It's like fighting against mathematics itself. Sarah took a long sip of cold coffee, her mind wandering to the chaos theory papers she'd published years ago, the ones that had nearly ended her career for being too speculative. Maybe that's the problem, she said slowly. We're trying to fight perfect patterns with better patterns. Across the room, Captain Marcus Rodriguez was having a similar epiphany, but in a very different context. The veteran pilot stood before a group of alien military strategists, pointing at combat footage of their latest defeat. Look, he said, circling a formation of sleek alien ships. Your fleet movements are beautiful. Perfect spacing, optimal firing solutions, textbook maneuvers. He paused. And that's exactly why you're losing. War strategist Crix clicked his mandibles in confusion. Our formations are based on thousands of years of space combat doctrine. They maximize efficiency and the cascade predicts every move, Rodriguez interrupted. He pulled up footage from an old Earth air show. Watch this instead. Blue Angels, 2021. Planes flying so close they should crash. Maneuvers that waste fuel and serve no tactical purpose. Moves that look random but aren't. This is highly inefficient, Crix observed. Exactly. Rodriguez grinned. It's art, not math. And you can't calculate art. Meanwhile, in what used to be a garage, engineer Jay Patel sat surrounded by pieces of alien technology he'd partly dismantled. Junior archivist Miralay watched in horror as he attached what appeared to be primitive Earth electronics to sophisticated alien devices. That modification violates at least 3 laws of quantum mechanics, she said, her tentacles writhing anxiously. Cool, right? Jay didn't look up from his work. Pass me that old radio antenna, would you? And maybe that microwave emitter we salvage. You're combining technologies that shouldn't be compatible, Miralay protested. The efficiency loss alone. Efficiency is predictable, Jay said, soldering another impossible connection. We need inefficient. We need weird. We need human. The breakthrough came a week later, when all 3 approaches collided in humanity's characteristic chaos. Sarah's team had been running simulations based on weather patterns rather than physics. Rodriguez had been teaching alien pilots to fly like stunt performers instead of soldiers. And Jay had cobbled together devices that were half alien quantum tech, half Earth junkyard. The first test against a minor tendril of the Cascade stunned everyone. Sarah's chaotic quantum formulas made their ships appear to be everywhere and nowhere at once. Rodriguez's pilots flew in patterns based on jazz music rather than tactical doctrine. And Jay's hybrid devices broadcast signals that seemed to give the Cascade mathematical hiccups. This is impossible, Xena 9 declared, watching the Cascade retreat for the first time since it had appeared. The energy patterns make no sense. The battle formations are illogical. Those devices shouldn't even function. Welcome to humanity, Sarah grinned, already scribbling new equations that violated half the laws of physics, where we do 6 impossible things before breakfast. The news spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity's chaotic approach had found a weakness in the Cascade's perfect patterns, but victory celebrations were premature. The Cascade was learning, adapting, trying to understand human unpredictability, and in doing so, it was becoming something even more dangerous. As Sarah studied the new data, she felt a chill. It's not just adapting, she realized. It's trying to calculate chaos itself. She looked at her alien colleagues. And if it succeeds, if it learns to predict the unpredictable, then humanity's advantage will be lost. Miralay finished softly. And with it, perhaps our last hope. Rodriguez looked at the battle footage, seeing the Cascade's formerly perfect patterns beginning to show hints of chaos. Then we'll just have to be even more human, he said firmly. Even more creative, more unpredictable, more impossible. Jay held up his latest invention, a device that somehow combined quantum entanglement with an old television remote. Good thing impossible is what we do best. As they prepared for the next phase of the war, Sarah found herself remembering something her graduate advisor had once told her. The most human thing about chaos theory isn't that it explains unpredictability. It's that we looked at unpredictability and decided to understand it anyway. Now, facing an enemy that threatened all existence, humanity would need to prove that their greatest strength wasn't their ability to understand chaos, but to create it. The real question was, could they do it fast enough? Breaking point. The emergency alarms echoed through the command center as another defense line collapsed. Sarah Chen watched in horror as the holographic display showed the Cascade consuming a system they'd successfully defended just last week. Their tricks weren't working anymore. It's learning, she said, pointing to the data streams. Look at these patterns. It's not just adapting to our chaos. It's incorporating it. Every random strategy we use, it absorbs and reflects back at us. War strategist Crix's armor clicked as he analyzed the battle footage. The human pilot's unpredictable maneuvers. The Cascade is mimicking them now, but with perfect precision. It's like fighting against a mirror that shows our own chaos, refined into deadly order. In the hangar bay, Captain Rodriguez slammed his fist against his fighter's hull in frustration. 3 squadrons lost in the last engagement alone. The Cascade had somehow learned to predict even their most random attack patterns. It's not just predicting us, he told his surviving pilots during the debriefing. It's like it's learned to speak our language. Every crazy maneuver we invent, it turns into a mathematical formula. It's turning our chaos into its order. Jay Patel's workshop, once a place of creative energy, now looked like a graveyard of failed innovations. His hybrid devices, which had once confused the cascade's perfect patterns, were becoming less and less effective. The enemy was learning to decode even his most nonsensical creations. Even randomness has patterns if you look hard enough, he muttered, staring at his latest failed prototype. Mireille's tentacles gently touched his shoulder, offering silent support. The Galactic Conclave had reconvened in emergency session. Supreme Administrator Vixtol's bioluminescence pulsed with grave concern as they addressed the assembly. The human advantage is failing, they announced. The cascade has evolved beyond our worst predictions. It's not just destroying chaos now. It's consuming it, learning from it, using it against us. We are approaching a critical decision point. Sarah found herself working longer hours, pushing the boundaries of physics further than ever before. She'd moved beyond chaos theory into realms of mathematics that shouldn't exist. Her equations now looked more like abstract art than science. "We need something new," she told her team, her voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "Something even we don't understand. The cascade can learn any pattern, even our random ones. So we need to go beyond random." Rodriguez was having similar thoughts as he trained new pilots. "Forget everything you know about flying," he instructed them. "Forget everything you know about physics. When you're up there, I want you to fly like dreams, like music, like emotions themselves." Jay had stripped his workshop bare, starting from scratch. "We've been thinking too small," he explained to Mireille as he began assembling something that defied description. "We tried to make ordered technology chaotic. Instead, we need to make chaos technological." But the cascade continued to advance. Every breakthrough brought them only days before the enemy adapted. Humanity's greatest strength, their unpredictability, was being turned into a weapon against them. The death toll mounted as more systems fell. During a rare quiet moment, Sarah, Rodriguez, and Jay met in the command center's observation dome, watching the distant flashes of ongoing battles. "We're running out of crazy ideas," Rodriguez said quietly. "The cascade is learning faster than we can innovate." "Maybe that's it," Sarah said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with a dangerous idea. "We're still trying to stay one step ahead of it. But what if instead we let it catch up?" Jay finished, catching her train of thought. "Let it think it's figured us out. More than that." Sarah's voice was intense. "We let it think it's become us. Let it think it's mastered chaos. And then we show it what true chaos really means." Rodriguez grinned, starting to understand. They worked through the night, developing their most audacious plan yet. It was more than risky. It was certifiably insane. It would require sacrificing everything they'd learned, everything they'd built. It would mean taking humanity's gift for chaos to its absolute limit. "This is beyond dangerous," Xenonine warned when they presented the plan. "If we fail, we'll have given the cascade everything it needs to perfect its understanding of chaos. We'll have handed it the ultimate weapon. And if we succeed," Sarah countered, "we'll show it that true chaos can never be perfected. That's humanity's real secret, not that we can create chaos, but that we know it can never truly be mastered." As the plan took shape, Sarah found herself staring at her original chaos theory equations. They seemed quaint now, like a child's drawings compared to what they were about to attempt. They were going to break every rule, violate every pattern, and push the very concept of unpredictability to its breaking point. The question was, when they stared into that abyss of pure chaos, what would stare back? And would humanity's greatest strength become the galaxy's salvation, or its ultimate doom? The human factor. The combined fleet of human and alien ships hung in the darkness of deep space, appearing to drift aimlessly. To any observer, it would look like a defeated force in retreat. That was exactly what they wanted the cascade to think. Sarah Chen stood at her station on the command ship, surrounded by holographic displays showing their forces scattered across 3 sectors. Her new equations were their riskiest yet, They didn't just bend the laws of physics, they ignored them entirely. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady despite the tension. "All ships in position." Rodriguez responded from his fighter squadron. "Every pilot knows this is a one-way trip. We're ready." "Hybrid devices activated." Jay's voice crackled through the comm. "They're unstable as hell, just like we planned. Mireille's calculations say we've got maybe 20 minutes before they start falling apart." Supreme Administrator Vixtol's bioluminescence pulsed with concern. "Are you certain about this strategy? It seems more than chaotic. It seems suicidal." Sarah nodded grimly. "That's exactly why it might work. The Cascade has learned to predict our unpredictability by finding the patterns in our chaos. So we're going to show it what happens when chaos truly has no pattern at all." The plan was insane, even by human standards. They had deliberately created technology designed to fail, ships programmed to malfunction, and battle strategies that contradicted themselves. They weren't just embracing chaos, they were becoming it. The Cascade appeared exactly as they'd predicted, its geometric patterns now showing hints of the human chaos it had absorbed. It moved like a storm of black crystals, each shard reflecting the techniques it had learned from humanity. "Here we go," Sarah whispered. "Jay, start the broadcast." Jay activated his latest creation, a device that combined alien quantum technology with Earth's most primitive radio equipment. It began transmitting what appeared to be pure nonsense, old TV static mixed with quantum noise, fragments of human music blended with mathematical impossibilities. The Cascade paused, its patterns shifting as it tried to analyze the signal. Just as their models predicted, it began to adapt, trying to incorporate this new form of chaos into its perfect patterns. "Now, Rodriguez." The fighter squadrons launched, but not in any formation they used before. Each pilot had been given unique instructions. "Fly based on your childhood memories. Follow the rhythm of your favorite song. Move like your pet would move." No two pilots were alike. No pattern could be predicted. The Cascade's response was immediate and devastating. It began to mirror their movements, creating perfect mathematical echoes of their chaos, exactly as planned. "It's working." Mireille's tentacles writhed with excitement. "The Cascade is committing more and more of its processes to understanding and replicating our patterns." Sarah watched the data streams intensely. The Cascade was now fully engaged in analyzing and adapting to their apparent madness. It had devoted nearly all its computational power to decoding what it thought was humanity's ultimate expression of chaos. J. Phase 2. Jay's hybrid devices began to fail spectacularly, each one breaking down in unique and impossible ways. Some imploded, others exploded, and a few simply ceased to exist in normal spacetime. The Cascade, still trying to understand and adapt, attempted to process these failures as well. "Now for the real chaos," Sarah said, activating her final equations. Every ship in the fleet began to move according to mathematical formulas that shouldn't exist. They followed paths that violated causality, appeared in multiple places simultaneously, and ignored the basic laws of motion. The Cascade's perfect patterns began to show signs of strain as it tried to comprehend what it was seeing. "We've got its full attention," Rodriguez reported. "It's completely focused on us now. Whatever you're going to do it fast." Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment everything hinged on. Initiate final phase. Show it what true chaos really means. All at once, every ship, every device, every transmission began to act completely independently. There was no pattern, no underlying logic, not even a pretense of coordination. It was pure, absolute chaos, the kind that couldn't be predicted because it had no cause, no reason, no source. The Cascade froze. For the first time since it had appeared, its perfect patterns faltered. It had absorbed humanity's chaos, learned to predict it, even learned to use it. But this was different. This wasn't chaos that could be understood or replicated. This was chaos in its purest form. "Look," Miralay cried out. The cascade's geometric patterns were beginning to fragment, its perfect mathematical structure breaking down as it tried to process what it was seeing. It's trapped, Sarah explained, watching the readings. It devoted everything to understanding our chaos, and now that understanding is tearing it apart. It's experiencing a mathematical version of a logical paradox. The cascade's attempts to mirror their chaos became increasingly erratic. It had learned to predict the unpredictable, but now it faced something truly random, truly chaotic. Its perfect patterns began to collapse in on themselves. But victory wasn't assured yet. As the cascade thrashed in its death throes, it lashed out with unprecedented force. Ships vanished into quantum static, entire sectors of space warped and twisted, and reality itself seemed to shudder. "Hold the line," Rodriguez shouted as his squadron was buffeted by waves of pure entropy. "We show it everything we've got. Every impossible thing humans have ever dreamed of." They were beyond tactics now, beyond strategy, beyond even chaos theory. They had reached a point where human imagination met the very limits of reality, and decided to push beyond them anyway. The question was, would it be enough, or had they simply unleashed a form of chaos that would consume them all? Unbreakable. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp as the cascade thrashed in its death throes. The void between stars filled with impossible colors as order and chaos clashed on a scale never before witnessed in the galaxy's history. Sarah Chen's instruments had stopped making sense hours ago. Mathematical certainties crumbled as the cascade's perfect patterns collapsed, unable to process the pure, patternless chaos humanity had unleashed. But in its desperation, it was tearing apart the very fabric of space-time. "We've destabilized it," she shouted over the quantum static that filled all communication channels. "But if we can't contain the reaction, we'll lose everything." Through the chaos, Captain Rodriguez's voice crackled. "Then we do what humans do best. We improvise." His fighters were flying blind now, their instruments useless in the quantum storm. They relied purely on instinct, each pilot becoming a point of human consciousness in the maelstrom of pure chaos. They weren't just flying anymore. They were dancing with impossibility itself. In his makeshift laboratory, Jay Patel watched as his hybrid devices began to evolve in ways he'd never intended. The merger of primitive Earth technology and advanced alien science was creating something entirely new, something that existed in the space between order and chaos. It's not just breaking down, he realized, watching the readings. It's transforming. "Miralay, help me adjust these frequencies." The young alien archivist's tentacles flew across the controls, her species' natural ability to process multiple data streams proving crucial as they tried to shape the chaos rather than control it. The cascade's death spiral was reaching its peak. Where it had once been a force of perfect entropy, it now writhed like a wounded animal, its mathematical perfection shattered by something it could never adapt to. The true randomness of human nature. "This is our chance," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the reality distortions that made the command center shift like a kaleidoscope. "We've shown it that true chaos can't be predicted or controlled. Now we show it why." She activated the final phase of their plan. Something so audacious that even their alien allies had called it impossible. Every human in the fleet, from pilots to engineers to scientists, began to act on pure intuition. No plans, no coordination, no underlying pattern at all. Just pure human unpredictability amplified by alien technology. The effect was immediate and stunning. The cascade, already destabilized by its inability to process true chaos, faced something even more incomprehensible: the power of human imagination unleashed without limits or logic. Rodriguez's pilots flew patterns based on dreams and emotions. Jay's devices operated on principles that defied physics itself. Sarah's equations described mathematical spaces that couldn't exist, yet somehow did. "Look," Miralay cried out, her tentacles weaving complex patterns of excitement. "The cascade, it's not just breaking down anymore. It's transforming. The massive entity that had threatened to consume the galaxy was changing. Its perfect geometric patterns shattered and reformed, not into order or chaos, but into something in between. Something new. Supreme Administrator Vixtal's bioluminescence pulsed with amazement. It's becoming something else entirely. Something that exists in the space between pattern and randomness. Sarah watched the readings with growing understanding. We didn't just show it chaos. We showed it humanity. The ability to exist between order and chaos, to thrive in that impossible space where logic meets imagination. The transformation reached its crescendo in a burst of energy that briefly outshone entire galaxies. When it faded, where the cascade had been, there was something else. A new form of existence that shimmered with both pattern and possibility. We didn't destroy it, Jay realized, studying the readings from his surviving instruments. We taught it something new, something even we didn't understand until now. As the dust settled and the fleet regrouped, the full impact of what humanity had achieved began to sink in. They hadn't just saved the galaxy, they had changed it forever. The boundary between order and chaos, between the possible and impossible, had been redrawn. In the weeks that followed, as the galaxy began to rebuild, something remarkable happened. The transformed cascade, now a shimmering field of quantum potential, began to create rather than destroy. Where it touched, new forms of life and technology emerged, things that combined the best of both order and chaos. You've given the galaxy more than salvation, Miralay told her human friends as they watched the transformation spread. You've shown us a new way to exist. Not in perfect order or pure chaos, but in the beautiful uncertainty between. Sarah, Rodriguez, and Jay stood in the observation dome, watching their legacy unfold across the stars. They had proved that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their battle tactics or even their chaos. It was their ability to imagine the impossible and make it real. So, Rodriguez asked with a grin, what impossible thing should we do next? Sarah looked out at the transformed galaxy, where order and chaos now danced in harmony, and smiled. Whatever we dream up. After all, that's the human factor. We never stop imagining new impossibilities.